Talk radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Man. How you doing? It's Fade to Black. Today is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It's going to be one of those nights tonight, and you know why? Jonny Enoch is back with us. One of my good friends and one of my favorite guests to have on Fade to Black. He's back with us. He's spent so many years with us on the show, and I never, ever know what to expect when I've got Jonny Enoch on the show. So he's with us tonight. And what is interesting here, I'm going to set this up just a little bit, is we both were just in Egypt. So he's back, I'm back. And tonight I've titled the show Egypt and Time. We're going to jump into his research and what he learned and has learned on his trips to Egypt and his most recent trip. And of course, my trip there as well. We can cross-pollinate and compare notes, and it's going to be a very, very, very interesting conversation tonight. And I do want to remind everybody about what's coming up. First off, get your Fade to Black t-shirts. There's two ways to get them, two shirts to get. The links for everything are below. Everything includes shipping and is autographed. So get your Fade to Black t-shirts now and help support the show. Coming up in 2 short weeks, November 10th, 11th, and 12th, is Stairway to the Stars at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. Adrian and I and Disclosure Fest, his foundation, we have been working on this conference for a couple of years, and I am very, very excited about this. Biggest event of the year, and it's at the Luxor. It's on the Strip, and we've got so many exciting things planned, including Jonny Enoch. He is going to be there. Come and hang out with all of us. The links are below. I've got a promo code for you for tickets, and you can get your hotel rooms and everything else. Go to disclosurefest.org. The links are below. Come and hang out with us. And I know what you're going to ask me when you see me. Okay, Jimmy, it's cool that you're here, but where's that Enoch guy? I want to meet Enoch. Come and hang out with Jonny. All right? It'll change your life. So I'll see you guys November 10th, 11th, and 12th at Stairway to the Stars. Jonny is an author. He's a researcher of prehistoric civilizations. He's a futurist. Hey, I know, kind of contradicts itself, but in my world, one goes with the other. He explores mysteries around the world. That's what he does. He's the host of the popular TV shows like Gaia's Mystery Teachings, the Odyssey of Enoch, and he's featured, of course, on Deep Space, Ancient Civilization, and the Travel Channel's Alaska Triangle. All right, there's all that and much more. I could read Jonny's complete bio. I'm not going to sit here for the next 30 minutes and do that. You know what I would rather do? I'd rather go, what's up, Jonny? How you doing?
I'm doing good, Jimmy. Thanks for having me back on. And you're becoming this world traveler lately. You're everywhere.
And you know who's there, standing there waiting for me?
Who?
Jonny Enoch.
That's true. I keep missing you. And I was just in Egypt at the same time as you.
Yeah, and we miss each other. I was when I was watching your post, and I know what I'm posting, and I'm like, he's here somewhere, and it was just kind of bizarre that our paths didn't cross, but we got back around the same time too as well, and so we'll talk about all of that.
Hey, you know what? You're forgetting though, Jimmy. We just saw each other in the UK too.
Yes, yeah, that was. That was a lot of fun, Jonny.
You and I, we had the best laughs. We were joking around at that. It was a great conference, and they're having a cigar and talking about extraterrestrials and all kinds of mysteries in the universe. It was a wonderful time.
You know what was that conference, the Awakening Conference, is pretty amazing, and I was supposed to get over there like 3 years in a row and host that thing, and for one reason or another, things just happened, and then COVID got in the way and stuff. But anyway, what was most amazing is I was this is what it's like over there. The fans and the community is so aware. It's absolutely a tremendous thing to the level of knowledge, right? So I'm outside with Craig Charles, and Craig and I are talking. I think we just got off the stage, and Michael comes up to me. Michael, he comes up, taps me on the shoulder, and he goes, "Jimmy, you've got to get inside." And I go, "Why?" He goes, "There's a queue." I go, "What's a queue?" "At your table." I go, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Okay, come on." And he pulls me away from Craig Charles, right? Pulls me inside and points at my table. I didn't even know why my table was there. And there was a line, dude, hundreds of people, right? And you know what I'm talking about, right? Just,
I know. Yeah, it's
I
crazy
thought for me, and I sat there for 3 hours. And it was autographs and it was selfies, but it was talking to them. Everybody had a question, and this is what stands out for me. It's amazing. You don't get it here in the States. It's a different kind of fandom, I guess.
I agree.
So Jimmy, in episode 702 of Fade to Black, when you were talking to Whitley Strieber, you guys were talking. I was like, what? How do you know that? Right?
I know, man. I know exactly what you're talking about, because when you're over at one of the U.S. conferences, which I love, there's a different vibe to all the countries with different conferences, and they're amazing. They're mind blowing. But in the UK, it's a different type of love, and you get people coming up to you just lined up for hours. And I saw it around you too, and all of them, and they're like, I fall asleep at night to your voice and all that sort of stuff. And they're just so much love, and they love this subject over there. They're very thirsty for all of this. And I love that. And we love them too.
Yeah, this gentleman comes up to me. I have it. It's upstairs on my nightstand. Gentleman comes up to me and he goes, "Jimmy, on an episode with Richard Dolan." And I'm thinking, okay, he's been on the show 100 times. What's he? He goes, "You guys were talking about the P-38 Army can opener." And I go, "Yeah, kind of, and I lost Johnny. Johnny just dropped out. Johnny just tripped over. I watched him move. When he dropped out. He unplugged a cable. You just got to love Johnny. This is why I love Jonny Enoch. Right here. This is dude, what? This is why I love you, man. Right here. So, where was I? Oh, so he goes, "You were talking about a P-38 can opener." Yes. And that's a military thing that they unfold. They're really tiny, and then and he goes, "Here, I have one in the military packaging for you." Wow. I went back and checked that episode. That was 8 years ago. 8 years ago. And it's just heartwarming. It's humbling, man, to go through that. I just absolutely love it. So, but anyway, you're going to be at Stairway to the Stars, and I'm very excited about that. What are you going to be talking about this year?
Well, I'm very excited about this conference also, and thank you for inviting me. I remember when I got the call from you, I was walking over I think it was Calabasas that day, and you called me up and you said, "Johnny, you're going to be at the conference." And I was just like, all the ideas started flooding in my head of talks I've done throughout the years. And I always like to remix things and mix in new subjects. So it's going to be a mixture of various types of extraterrestrials that have been visiting us. I had some new classified information that was given to me. I'm getting permission to share about the nanostructures of reality. I'll be touching down on some of the stuff we're talking about tonight on how time is a sentient existence and how it has a sort of an awareness to it and how it's woven into every subatomic particle, which we can get into. And really, I think this subject of extraterrestrials, which I'd love to talk a bit about with you tonight, and you're no stranger to that, Jimmy. I know this is your forte. It's so fascinating that it goes beyond your typical types of grays. It goes beyond the typical types of humanoids. It goes into sort of synthetic intelligence, artificial intelligence. It also goes into, you could say, almost holographic structures. So we could get into that, but I think this conference has such a great lineup of speakers. And what is very exciting about it is that not only is it at the Luxor, which we have that fun Egyptian theme, but I have heard some very interesting things about the Luxor over the years. And I'm not sure if you and I have discussed this before, but I heard a very interesting story from Daniel Brinkley, our mutual friend, who lives out in Las Vegas. And he has a lot of military veteran friends, as you know, that at one point he was dropping off a fellow to go to work over at Area 51 or S4, in Rachel, Nevada. And he said that all these folks would get dropped off at the back of the Luxor, and underneath there was an underground train system that took off and took these guys with their packed lunches to get to work. So how fitting is that you picked the Luxor?
Which is why I picked it. No, I'm kidding. I've heard the same stories, the same rumors over the years about the train system that runs underneath and parallel to Las Vegas Boulevard and then heads out of town to Area 51. Everything is possible, and I wouldn't doubt something like that. But there's another part to it too, as well. There's an old story, an old account that goes back about 30 years. A couple of sailors in the Navy are told to go to a certain coordinate out in the desert next to Las Vegas, right? So they go out there and they go to this meeting spot, and there's a couple of other people there, and a hatch opens up in the middle of the desert.
Wow.
They go down a ladder, and it is an underground river with a submarine in it.
That's true.
You board the submarine, and they pop out in Malibu, California.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. And so we've all heard these stories. Now, this account, because now we have the Malibu underwater base right there at Point Magoo, and one would have to wonder, is that what they were talking about? And it's something that has always been there. It's a big mystery, and the reason why, and then I'll hand this back over to you. The reason why I don't discount these stories is that Janet Airlines, which operates out of McCarran by EG&G, and that is the flight that leaves from Las Vegas Airport that everybody knows, that is carrying employees to Area 51 in the morning, returning them at night, right? Okay.
Right.
We know, but that's the public side, right? That's what we see. There has to be another version of it that we don't see. And I would say that would be underground.
Well, it's interesting because when the late, great Jordan Maxwell was alive, and I want to say I very much appreciate that you gave him a platform. When a lot of people wouldn't give a platform to him. He used to tell me that he was grateful to Jimmy Church. He would say, I'm very grateful to Jimmy Church because Jimmy Church would allow me on his show and he would come on here And you would let him share, and you'd let him talk about these things. And I have some great ET stories that come from him that I love.
Man, that was a really good Maxwell, by the way. Thank you
very much.
That made me, I'm tearing up, man. That was pretty good.
Thank you, man. Thank you. When he used to tell me, when I used to go on trips with him, we'd take these road trips. I'd pick him up, and when he was living in LA or he was living over in Las Vegas, I'd go get him when he was by Tarzana or Ventura or something. And we would drive up that way. He would go, let's go to this little Mickey Mouse town called Rachel, Nevada. And he was always so proud that his picture was the biggest picture on the wall, the little alien inn, because he did this famous interview with Paul Tice about an experience they had of a sighting.
That's right.
Which is really cool that people at the upcoming conference are going to get an opportunity to go visit Area 51. There's an excursion, I believe, that's coming up for that. However, when he was out there, he used to tell me, he said, never mind, the apple pie and the, having a coffee in there, which is fantastic. He said, go walk across that little road, that little strip in the middle of nowhere. And he said, put your ear up to the telephone pole, he would tell me. And he said to me, do you hear that? And I said, well, what's that, Jordan? And he'd say, you can hear this rustling and bustling under the ground. He said, that's the train system. He said, there's an electric train system. He goes, all those places like Los Alamos and, the different bases. He goes, they're all connected and you could hear them. So there's definitely an underground system.
Do you remember, this is one of my favorite Jordan Maxwell stories. I know you were there. Do you remember when I had the security ID him for his age? You remember when he was in the wheelchair? We had the cabana by the pool.
I remember.
Yeah, and the manager of the hotel came up and said, Mr. Church, this is courtesy of the hotel, and he brought us bottles of Patron, remember? And the waitresses, and they had all those shot glasses, and he had the security dudes with him.
I remember you got everybody Patron.
Yeah, I did. But anyway, I go, listen, do me a favor. I said, don't look, but see the guy behind me in the wheelchair? Go and card him and ask him his age. And he goes, okay, we can do that. And those two security dudes, those two buff dudes come up, and Jordan's like freaking, man. He's like, what? He's sitting, and they come up, they lean down. You remember they were in suits with the radios and excuse me, sir. We need to check your ID. And he goes, for what? We need to make sure that you're 21. That was video. Man, that was the classic look on his face. He goes, my wallet's in the hotel room. Then you can't drink, sir.
Well, you captured an absolute classic picture that I love. And you happen to, I photobombed it, but you had this beautiful picture of, it was Jordan Maxwell hugging Danyan, and it was right over by your table.
That's right. Yeah. You did photobomb that, actually. I love that picture. You're right there in the background. Yeah, that's right. That's a very touching. That's one of my favorite pictures. And and you did photobomb it, man. You completely.
I did.
Yeah.
Those were fun times. But I mean, the one thing that I love about these conferences, everyone comes together as a community. We all share, we all love, we all do these things. But I always love it when you and I come across each other. We always crack a lot of jokes. It's always a lot of fun, and that's what we need in the community too. We need people to unite, but also to share our knowledge together. I'm a big believer, as you know, and this is why I like your show, that none of us have just the single piece of the puzzle that's going to solve it all. If we put all of our pieces together, we put the map together, whether it's from Whitley Strieber or Richard Dolan, as you mentioned, or Jordan Maxwell, or all these great legends and giants. And that's what these conferences are great for. They unite everyone and bring them together, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And you know what? And this is a good segue. I want to ask you a question, because you bring up a really good point. You and I, we like to goof around and laugh, and we tend to draw a crowd around us because people want to join in on the laughter and hear what we're clowning about. And then there's the other side of Johnny, because right after that, you and I were on a panel together.
Oh, that was cool.
And you're sitting next to me, and so the clown around Johnny and Jimmy, right, that were just outside. Now we've got to put our professional hats on. And I'm listening to you, and you were talking about Egypt, and you rattled off these names and dates and gods and locations and blah 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 blah. And I thought to myself, how does he do that? Have you always had that type of recall where you can retain the facts and the dates and the situation and be able to repeat it with almost photographic memory?
Yeah, I well, first of all, thank you for the compliment. I would give that over to you as well. You're very good with names and people, and I'm always impressed by your knowledge on a wide variety of subjects, Jimmy. But
I'm smoking mirrors, but
oh, come on now,
I'm being very serious. You have this ability to retain. You've got, and then you can turn around and repeat it, and for everybody to learn from. Have you always had that ability?
I have. It's like a photographic memory. Like when I talk about Egypt, I just got it up here, but it's also in here. As you know, when you go to Egypt, it changes you. But for example, I always tell people, you look at the Great Pyramid, and it's made of granite, sandstone, and limestone. It's got 2.5 million stones. Some are 70 tons each, as you know, you were just there. And it's a polynomial tetrahedral structure that can be turned into a sphere using transdimensional mathematics. And so sometimes you have to have those facts on hand, especially if you're traveling there.
And do you have, this is where we're going to be able to just riff a little bit. Do you have a favorite site at, I'll preload this. I've got something, there's something about Dendera for me. Dendera. The Egyptians, by the way, yeah, they corrected me like 3 times. Dendera, and it has an H. You guys, the Americans, spell it wrong. I was like, oh, okay, whoa, all right. So I had to go back to all my Facebook posts and add H's.
Here's the thing, Jimmy. The Egyptians too, they say it differently. We say Hathor's temple, like the goddess Hathor, who turns into Sekhmet. But they say Hathor, so they don't even pronounce the middle H, and so they start that will mess with you a little bit. Or instead of Osiris, they'll say Osir. So it's tomato.
You know what? When in Egypt, like when in Rome. So do you have a site that is special for you?
First of all, I want to say Hathor's temple at Dendera is by far one of the most beautiful. They've done a wonderful job of restoring the roof with all the zodiacal, astrological aspects. You got the crypts, and that was like a university of the mysteries, and the secrets of Atlantis are down there. And as you know, it's absolutely life-changing to go there. I would say my favorite temple by far, though, is... well, it has to be Abydos. Abydos is magnificent. That's where you were pointing out the king's list. You saw the Osirion in the back. And a lot of people have a lot of different ideas about Abydos. And we have this very famous story about Seti, the lady that moved there and had a past life memory when she was very young. And she came there and she set up shop and helped people find things and had various thoughts and memories come back to her. But what's very interesting about Abydos is you got 3 layers at the front of it when you walk up to it. And a lot of people don't know this, but if you count the steps leading up to the first layer, where there was a certain level of initiates, there's 42 steps. And these 42 steps are important to the mysteries, because 42, we're told, is the number that not only Osiris was chopped up into various pieces, but we're told there's 42 tribes. And 42 is connected all throughout the mysteries. When you get into this temple, on the walls, you'll see them administering these white cakes. And these cakes that they were using were very much this monoatomic gold, or this white powdered gold that the Egyptians were eating to upgrade their abilities. This, of course, was known as the manna, or the bread of the presence, that was stored over in the Ark of the Covenant. And there was many of those, and they're inscribed on the walls. You have 7 Holy of Holies, which these rooms were very significant with the false doors. And we believe at some point that there was some kind of maybe harmonics or something that was there that were allowing them to access something using these white cakes. And that would be unlocking the pineal gland or upgrading things to allow them to go places. You might say with the Ba or the Ka, the different life forces we have. In the back, though, when you get to the very back, one of the coolest things on this site, and we connect this site to Ptolemy, who is connected to Alexander the Great, but there is something known as the Osirion. And you've been down there. I saw that you visited it. And the Osirion, it has the flower of life patterns that have been etched up there, probably by the Pythagoreans. And we could go into explanation sometime about what that's for. But if you ask people, a lot of people will say, well, I think it was a power plant. Some people will have all kinds of theories what they think it was for. Notice there's no hieroglyphics in it, and it's done in granite. So we could say this is pre-cataclysmic, not even pre-dynastic. Pre-dynastics came after the cataclysms.
I agree.
So do you know what I think it was for?
Yeah, I would love
to
know.
If you're in the back room, there's a chimney area. It's blackened where they were cooking things up, like alchemical things. And Timothy Hogan and I have spent a lot of time lecturing about this, and we went into it on Mystery Teachings. But if you look underneath Abydos is another more ancient temple that's pretty much at that same level as the Osirion. Just like all the moon temples under the Giza Plateau, the Sphinx and the temples under the Giza Plateau are far older than the top part of the Great Pyramid. That came along later. So there's 11 layers. And these 11 layers of sediment, this is where the Nile, before the dam, the Nile used to flood up. It used to flood up in July, at the beginning of July when Sirius was out. This is where the alchemy comes from. As you know, the ancient name for Egypt was Chem or Kemet, where we get alchemy and chemistry from. They would take this black material and they would process it and extract this white powdered gold that they were consuming the cakes from. So this area, I believe, was a processing plant where it would come through from the Nile, they would extract it, and then it was brought in, because that whole area up there, all that black, you know, that dark mud that you see, that's all that material that we call chem from. And so they would bring it in, and that this was used for the Holy of Holies and the activations that you see upon the wall that the priests are using it for.
I'm with you on that. I'm not going to, no, I can't debate that. Normally, I would like to debate Jonny Enoch. That one I'm going to leave right on the table. and let me tell you why. When you look at when you look from above down into the Osirion, you don't get the full vibe. And as a matter of fact, it looks kind of small from up top. When you walk down and you get it, and you start to observe the ginormity and the permanency. It's a permanent installation. This was built to withstand lots of heat and lots of pressure. Those blocks are 2 stories tall. They're 12 to 15 feet wide, solid granite, perfectly square. And there's actually 3, but there's 2 rows of 5. They are huge. And then they're stacked on top with more identical sized blocks. So you have to ask yourself, why are they here? And why are they this big? It's so they wouldn't move. Okay, that's a lot of pressure. And, and when you look and you see where the pipe is orientated, you know, on the outside, where it looks to me, that was the ingress of water coming through the square. So that square portion at the bottom is interlocking blocks. And you can't see that from the top. And I've never heard any other researcher talk about this in the past, because you couldn't go down in there. You couldn't see it. When you go down there and you see, why would they have interlocking blocks down there? To withstand the pressure of what is going on. This was a permanent installation. So, yes, was it, like a water processing plant, a desalination plant? Is it that kind of idea, to process the monatomic gold? Yeah, I could see that. It's definitely a machine. And the other thing that blew my mind is that the I'm going to call them gates where that are on both sides, and there's 10 doorways, but that's to slush, right? Water's going in there and coming out. You know what I mean? Slurry. That's yeah. So I can see it. Monatomic gold, and then the two pits at the bottom. It's like it's not a temple.
They're trying to tell you something too, Jimmy. When you're in there and you're looking at the instructions on the wall that are talking about them feeding these cakes, which we call the white hedge or the white shite, you see that it also says Stargate when it's dedicated to Seti the First. We're seeing also when you walk in there, the first thing that people are wowed by is they look up and they go, well, there's what we call the helicopter relief with the submarine and whatnot. And that's often been debated. And this is something that Muhammad and I would debate for years, who I know you guys just did a tour with. He's a great guide, very knowledgeable, has lots of knowledge about hieroglyphics, but he and I debated the white gold for years. We debated Stargates for years. And then he named his tour company Saboteurs after Stargates. And he said, Johnny, you were right. This does say white gold on the wall right here. And he said we don't have a type of white cake like that. Well, then we were talking about the helicopters and the submarines up there. And before, they would say this is a palimpsest. And that's where you get glyphs on tops of glyphs due to water erosion. And people might say, okay, could this just be an accident? That that this was just formed by accident in nature? I think it was done intentionally due to the nature of this incredible temple. They're trying to tell you something about these pre-cataclysmic people that were at that site before.
Could be. Those particular glyphs, and yes, debated over and over again. And those that want to be skeptical about that, and that's fine. We need skeptics. We do. We need to be centered. We can't go all woo all the time. You just can't do it. It's not healthy. But and one of the things that the skeptics have in their corner is we know every time we got a new pharaoh, right, a new family, whatever comes into power, they are going temple to temple to temple and refacing, putting their image on it, and doing their best to make themselves the greatest that ever was. And this was repeated, for thousands of years. So that's what the skeptics have in their corner. What they don't have in their corner is that's a helicopter, right?
It looks like one.
Yeah, it does. And the one in front of it, people have called it different things. You know what it looks like to me? And I just can't get it out of my head. It looks like an Italian yacht that you would see parked in Monaco. That's what it looks like.
It certainly does. Like a Saint-Tropez yacht. Yeah, here's the thing, Jimmy. Edgar Cayce, the great sleeping prophet, told us that the ancient Atlanteans, the prehistoric civilization that we would say was the precursor that we relate to Egypt, he would say that they had submarines, they had flying machines. We know that in Saqqara, there's very much this bird plane-like structure that they have found, which is fascinating. We also see these depictions not only within the Vimanas that you find in the ancient Indian Vedic texts of the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Samarangana Sutradhara. In fact, chapter 5 of the Mahabharata talks about Arjuna going up and flying into the heavens. We have in chapter 31 of the Samarangana Sutradhara talking about these Vimanas in great detail. And so we can only assume that there's probably something to that. It's rather incredible.
The other strange thing that I find about the Assyrian, okay, let me back up for a second. You brought up Muhammad Ibrahim, and he's incredible. And the reason why he is incredible, he knows a lot. He's a nice guy. He's starting to open up. He's telling some funny jokes. I've known him for about 10 years. No, that's not what makes him cool. What makes him cool is that he grew up there. He was riding his bikes at these temples when he's 8 years old, right? That's where he played. He's learned and acquired a life's worth of knowledge that you just can't buy in the streets. You can't learn that in college. And in doing so, he has built relationships with everybody in Egypt. And you have met, you, Johnny, just like I have, you meet the directors of these sites. You meet the archaeologists of these sites, and you see the relationship that he has with them, and you get a full appreciation of not only the friendships, but the sharing of knowledge and what they know and what they've grown up with. And I think that there is a changing of the guard there. And you've done this just like I have. You meet these, let's just say executives, in the world of archaeology in Egypt. And I think that they're firmly on our side of the fence. And the reason why they're on our side of the fence is because they see things. They're around it all day long. They're digging stuff up. And it's not what they were taught in college, right? It's not what they were taught to get that degree in archaeology or Egyptology. They're finding stuff that is not fitting the dogma. That's what Muhammad brings to the table. And I'm fully appreciative.
I appreciate what you're saying there, but I will say this, Jimmy. The more you go out for dinner with these people and you meet them, and I've been out for dinner with a few very serious ones, and I'm sure you met some of them, and they will acknowledge some of these things, or even if you go out for a glass of wine with them for dinner or something, but they're still very pragmatic. They're still very conservative. They still don't want to talk about it.
100%. I know.
I'll tell you something. Underneath the Giza Plateau, when they started going under the Osiris shafts, and this is something that was very much spearheaded with the help of John Anthony West, the late great John Anthony West, who we'll pay tribute to. And when they went under there, and there was some private contractors and groups that had some interest down there, there was some very interesting classified things that were found under there, allegedly. And I've had this acknowledged by some folks. And one of those things that they found under there, and I believe you and I have discussed this before, was a very interesting type of crystal attached to a device that, when used with harmonic oscillation with sound, could be used to cut through granite. Another thing that was found were these rods, like you see the various Egyptian kings and depictions of them holding these two rods in their hands. Some of them are broken off. Or you'll see a very interesting depiction of this if you went to Carnac. I'm not sure if Muhammad brought you guys there, but there's something called the Annals of the King for King Tutmosis III, where he's holding these two rods to manipulate the sound waves they were creating, like a positive and a negative, to raise up the obelisk effortlessly, like anti-gravity. And there were other things that they used that used sound, and they were very informed about this type of technology and how it changed our consciousness. And believe it or not, that mana that we talked about, or the monoatomic gold, was very much a part of it. Now, there's another thing that makes them very nervous when you bring it up. Nobody wants to talk about this at the dinner table or outside of the dinner table when you're out for these folks, is an area that the folks can look this up. And again, we've mentioned this on previous episodes of Fade to Black, when we talk about stargates and we talk about time and what it really is, that there's an area in between Abu Sir and Abu Ghurab. There's an area out there called Zayet El Aryan. That's Zawayet Lel. That's Aryan, Aryan. It has an area underneath it that's the size of New York City, a subterranean area, an unfinished pyramidal complex on top of it, that the king who built these structures near there, he had the name Stargate in his title. And under there, we're told there's a real live Stargate still sitting there with these colors like a Aurora Borealis that comes out of the ground. That's what I've been told. That scares the hell out of them. They don't know how to describe it. The Russians or the Soviets found stuff that scared the hell out of them in Egypt. But the interesting part about this is it's since the 1950s, and you guys can look this up. This is Egypt's Area 51. Look it up on Wikipedia, the internet, wherever you want to go. It's been guarded by British and American military since the 1950s. And nobody, not one archaeologist or anyone who begs to get in there, can go have a look at this magnificent archaeological site because of the secrets that are held there. There are things in Egypt that are so powerful that they change the very feeling of your body when you go there, as you know, Jimmy, and you can feel it. It's something very different and powerful about the whole place.
You know, when you go to okay, you've been to Elephantine Island probably a few times, right? Okay, so there's three interesting points about Elephantine Island. Number one, the Germans spent a lot of time there looking for the Ark of the Covenant, right? It's Indiana Jones, Elephantine Island, right? There's that part. And so there's that. Elephantine Island, when you're up at the top and they have that tumbled piece of granite that it's got to be 50 tons or more.
Toppled over, right?
Yeah. And you look at that and you think to yourself, how did they make that? It's beautiful. It looks like it's a giant it's like a semi-truck sized phone booth. All right, that's kind of, it's the best way to kind of, there's a door, there's a seat, you can see the hinges, the holes for the hinges, but it's on its side. Now, how did it get up there? Number one. And number two, what was it for? And number three, who tipped it over? Because that was a lot. It's massive. But there's a part three to Elephantine Island. It's that frigging portico portal. So, up on the top of the island over on the side. So I see it. I break off. I mean, it just catches my eye. So everybody's headed this way. I turn left. I'm just going to go and check the. So I walk up and I'm like, man, that's a Stargate. That right there. That's a Stargate. They're saying that's a Stargate up there. Okay, that's cool. That's a Stargate. So I walk up to it and I shoot some video and I'm taking pictures. I walk through it. It's just sitting by itself on the edge of this cliff, right? And I walk through it. It's beautiful. What is a stone doorway that big just sitting on the top of this hill? So I walk through it. So I come back out. I'm taking all these pictures, walking down the hill. And then I see the sign with an arrow on it. And it says, the portico portal. They're even calling it that, right?
Well, here's an interesting point about what you just said. Brian Forster, when I visited Elephantine Island with him, and I'm doing some tours coming up with him, not only to Peru, but I'm doing an Egypt tour with him because he and I love working together as well. And I love working with all these legends and giants out there because every time your knowledge cross-pollinates into different areas. He's more of a megalithic guy, but he believes in his book Aftershock, which I believe he is right about this, that in the various cataclysmic activity we saw, during the Younger Dryas cataclysm and all these various areas, we had solar flares, we had all kinds of eruptions and disruptions and floods. We see that in our ancient texts, that this has happened from Atlantis to the Bible to the books of the Guatemalans. The areas that we see up there at Elephantine Island hold a lot of energy because it's based on rose granite, which contains a lot of silica and piezoelectrical energy, which is why the Templar Knights would have brought the Ark there at some point to charge up its energy, or one of the Arks. I believe there was many, many, many Arks. And when we look up there, Brian believes that you could trace this path where energy would have moved across during the cataclysms, almost like an energy grid that all the obelisks and stargates were working along, and it just crushed that thing and decimated it all the way through. But when you mention granite boxes, this is a very, very interesting point. And I know you guys went to the Serapeum, which if you look at the Serapeum, we have a BS story that comes back from August Marriott, 1857. He blew up one of the boxes and said they found a bull, the remains of an Apis bull. But point in fact, we really can't find those remains to this day. And I know Muhammad, for example, has gone out and tried to find them. He's not able to locate them. But they were using gunpowder archaeology back then, just like the fellow who forged Khufu's name up in the Great Pyramid, Colonel Weiss. He forged Khufu's name in red ochre paint. Yeah, he misspelled it too. What a genius. Yep. So he he just wanted more money for booze and everything else that he was doing back then, and cars and women and all that stuff. So a lot of these guys do that. So
Vice did, though. Vice did.
Yeah, well, Vice,
he had, he was a criminal before he got to Egypt, and so he had that mindset. Yeah. He had that mindset, man. He couldn't get out of his own way. Anyway, okay.
Wait, but this is the thing about the Serapeum. I don't believe for a second that the Serapeum was used to store bodies or apes or what is that, bulls or anything in there. It's not any of that. It could have been like an ark. That's what Timothy Hogan and I were discussing recently. Could have been like Noah's Ark, like preserving things during the cataclysms underground. However, if you look at that one box at the very end, and you'll see all the chicken scratch from Greco-Roman times. It's a bunch of garbage that's very sloppily carved on there by the priests at the time. There's a blank cartouche on there because they were trying to sell it off at the time. Yeah, that's right. You can tell that's not what it was used for. And it's so powerful, the energy, if you climb in that box, it's overwhelming. And secondly, I want to point out, if you look on the walls beside each of those boxes in the Serapeum, you'll see something has been removed. Perhaps maybe to create some kind of harmonic oscillation of sound, vibration.
It's obvious. It's obvious in each one of the rooms. There's something. There's a depression on one of the walls that is there. Okay, I've got his business card in the other room. I don't have it with me now, but it happened to be. So they give me the keys. No, yeah.
What's that?
So they give me the keys to the Serapeum, right? So we walk down. I get to unlock it. That was pretty epic, man. To swing that door open and turn on the lights. And you did. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Anyway, so we're going through. We go back to the room that you're talking about. The secret room. We do all that stuff, and it just coming out. So I leave everybody behind, and I like to go and do my own thing. Spiritually, just kind of just wander off. And I'm walking out, and guess who I bump into? I bumped into the new Zahi Hawass, right? Okay.
Wow.
Ministry of Culture. And he's up there and we're talking. He's got his new TV show on Netflix, which I had just seen, by the way. And it's The Secrets of Saqqara. And we're talking about that. Yeah, him. So I meet him. And nice guy, cool guy. Yeah, he's pretty cool. Dude. Straight dogma, right? Just it's right, and so we're standing at the entrance there where they have that sarcophagus, at the bottom of the steps when you first walk in. There's that one sitting there, and I go, okay, bro, listen, tell me how that lid was lifted. Just you tell. Well, they did it with pieces of wood, small pieces of wood. They would wedge it in there. They get it wet, and then it would expand just a little bit. Then they put another bigger piece of wood in there and water, and then another. And then eventually they would lift it big enough to get a sarcophagus in. I go, I looked right at him. Now I've got a crowd of people around me. They're listening to him, and I go back and forth. I go, do you really believe that? Right in his eyeballs, man. You really, really believe that? And he laughed. We took some great pictures, and we agreed to disagree on all of this. But I was throwing some stuff out there, things that he's heard. He's heard. All the.
Well, that's their job, though, Jimmy. Here's the thing. We say, hey, there's some Bronze Age people that they were using stones and chisels and all this nonsense to make things. For example, you go over to the Aswan quarry and you see that they give you this example of that stone. You go to bang to say, hey, this is how they made these incredible edifices and moved all this granite through pulleys and ropes and sand. Just take the Great Pyramid, for example. We talked about that there are 2.5 million stones approximately, and you had granite, sandstone, and limestone. Some of those 70 tons, they're enormous. It's perfect when you go in there in the Grand Gallery. And we're told that a 25-year-old king named Khufu or Cheops that built this thing. He could barely tie his own shoelaces. Do you have any idea how many resources that would take? Not only the builders and the workers that you would need, but you would also have to get guys to get them beer, to get them food, to take care of them, to service them. You would need people on top of that. And logistics wise, I mean, we wouldn't even be able to do that now in that proximate time frame. And it's so complex that there is no way that we can assume that it's a tomb. But you still get Egyptologists telling you that story about how it was built today and that it was used as a tomb and its main purpose.
Well,
and there's all kinds of
okay. As crazy as that is, and you're right, that's a layer of facts that are right out there in front of us. But it's doubly complicated because there are two pyramids sitting there that were built at the same time. Khafre and Khufu were built at the same time. So we can talk about 2.5 million blocks all we want, but it was 5 million. We can talk about 20,000 workers that built it. It was 40,000, not 20. All right. And everything is double in capacity, but they don't want to talk about that part of it. It's hard enough for us to wrap our head around placing one brick, one block every 2 minutes for 20 years. And, and we don't buy that, but we're forced into believing that story. But the story gets twice as hard to believe if you find out that there was two that were built at the same time.
It goes even deeper on the Giza Plateau because we know there's 9 pyramids that go up from there. And when you go up there, even the pyramids you see in Saqqara from, you see Dozier, you see the Red Pyramid, the Bent Pyramid, those are a trip. And these days, I don't enjoy going up into those pyramids in Saqqara whatsoever. That is like Pilates. It's going to the gym.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous.
It is, but get this. What's under that Giza Plateau that we talked about, and Rick Doty even has classified documents about that, and I know guys that have told me some very, very interesting classified stuff about it. But underneath there, when they went in there, when they found out what was really underneath those pyramids, and the entrance to the pyramid was never on the outside. That was completely sealed. The entrance, I believe, was through the Sphinx. You went under the Giza Plateau in those areas. That's how you would enter up into there, and that there's all kinds of secrets there. But what they did in the Osiris shafts is they flooded it. They flooded it with water. And there is all kinds of very, very interesting things under there. And that's the most interesting thing about these people that get their jobs out there, that if they don't cover it up, they don't say it doesn't exist, just like we do over here with extraterrestrials. If you get a press release that comes out from one of our governments, they say, oh, it was a water balloon, a hot air balloon, or it was just an anomalous thing in the sky. You didn't see anything. Don't worry about it. It's a crash weather experiment, right?
Okay, so talking about stargates, and you brought up Tutmosis III and that section of Carnac. Right there, you've seen it. I just want to bring it up. The depictions of what appears to me to be magic, right? Where you've got hands holding stuff that are floating, right? And if you are, you talked about the rods, right, that are being held. It's all in that one section where you're looking at it. You're not going to, I mean, when you look at it, it's obvious what it is. There's some kind of, there's something going on technically, whether it's sound or something else. But if you're going to have a depiction of something, I'll just grab the first thing that I can grab. I just grabbed a remote control. You're going to hold it. That's what you're going to do. You're not going to have a picture of you with your hands like this and this thing floating in the air, right? I can't float things. Otherwise, I would show you exactly what was in the picture.
Come on, I thought you could float things.
But when you see stuff like that, they are showing us something. And it's right there. And now, before we get to the break, we're going to take a break in 5 minutes. The Temple of the Seven Gates. Now,
Abydos?
No, Carnac.
Okay.
You've been there.
Oh, Carnac. You're talking about Thebes. Yeah, we call it the Great City of Gates. Carnac.
The temple is it's called the Temple of the Seven Gates. It's that little church. Oh, you haven't been there? Oh, okay.
No,
All right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Johnny.
I thought you were talking about Abydos saved the 7 Holy of Holies, so I thought that's what you're referring to.
I mean, that's incredible too. And when we come back after the break, we'll circle back to that. In Carnac, so Muhammad, it's my birthday. It's October 10th. And
Happy birthday again.
Yeah, thank you. I saw your post, by the way. That was very touching. You spent all of 5 minutes creating that meme, and
I spent 30 seconds creating it.
Dude, it was very special for me to see that from you. So thank you for that. Anyway, so we're going through Carnac, and we're walking. Carnac's big, whatever. It's 400 or 500 acres. I don't know. It's just ginormous,
huge.
And we're walking in the heat, and Muhammad announces to everybody, we're walking because it's Jimmy's birthday, and I'm taking him to a special place that is secure, and we're going to go. And it was the Temple of the Seven Gates. So we go up, and they got the police and the security there, and they greet us, and the process that happens at that point, and we weave through. I'm handing out cigarettes to all the security guards, American cigarettes, and so it's just what you do there in Egypt. Okay, everybody. So we go and we enter. The temple itself is it's a building, and it's white, pink granite. It's beautiful, but it's only about 20 feet square, and it's 2 rooms sitting in the middle. Carnac is a rubble field, right? That's what it is. It's a bunch of rocks. It's just unassembled, and they're all numbered, and it's acres and acres and acres of disassembly, and they're trying to figure out how to put everything back together, right? And half of Carnac is put together, the other half has been disassembled over the years. Anyway, but out in the middle of this field is this standing temple, and it took a while to get to it. Walked in the doorway, and it's 2 rooms with 1 wall in the middle. In the first room, 7 stargates carved into the wall. Boop, 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 boop. And you're looking at that, and it doesn't make any sense. And, you see everything all over Egypt. You see and this is a singular, unique situation. And I'm looking, I'm like, that is 7 gates. It is a temple with 7 gates in it. And then on the back of it, and you can go to my Facebook page, but on the back of it is the tree of life, which is pretty cool, right? But no, in the middle of the tree of life are 7 Ankh keys grouped together on the back of the Stargate. I mean, it's just like, yeah, what's the purpose of this? Now I almost thought for a second, Johnny, that maybe, and I could be wrong here, but it may not necessarily be a portal for time travel. It may be like a TV set, right? Okay, so here it is. That's the temple. Oh man, you can't see it because of the reflection. Let me see if I turn it sideways. Will it show up?
Maybe can you tweet it?
You know what? Let me send it to myself. I'll bring it up on the screen. I have the technology to do this. So let me do this.
That's nearly as good as the ancient Egyptian technology.
No, it's not quite as fast. It's not quite as fast. Okay, so I'll pull it up right here. And the way that this looks, see, this is how fast. Watch this. Bam, 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 bam. There it is. Now look at that. And it's just like, wait a minute here.
That's cool. It's definitely one of the false doors that we see that they're depicting. How often do you get to go see that?
Never. This is closed off. This is one of those. This is like not for public. But could it be like a TV screen? Could they have seen something there? Not necessarily travel. I don't know, but how incredible is that? And you've been all over Egypt. Have you ever seen anything like this? No, I haven't.
Well, Carnac was a very particular temple, a very interesting place. It was the office and headquarters for Tutmosis III. He was in the 18th dynasty. He was the one in Alexandria that they would often refer to as they would talk about the Great White Brotherhood. Later on, they talk about from eating these white cakes. So that was in his treasury that was depicted there. And his office was right at the very back towards that area that you're talking about. You'd see the enormous obelisks there and the structures that look like gates that giants once walked through. Outside, on the far left, when you're at Carnac, which is very cool too, there's this very special place that people go visit, the statue of Sekhmet. And the energy there is very particular. When they look over into this Sekhmet, they get a very amazing experience, but they don't like it to be disturbed a lot sometimes because some believe in Egypt that people might be worshiping a false idol or god there, because when they go look at this Sekhmet, they almost have an extraordinary emotional experience. But outside of that, I mean, what's so cool about it is you get that alley of sphinxes. It connects all the way up over to Luxor, which is where you get the word luxury from. And before we go on the break, there's a lot of cool stuff over in Luxor that would be cool for us to talk about, because you were mentioning that a lot of these Egyptian kings and rulers that would come along, they'd put their name on stuff like graffiti, just like they, when we have money over in one of these Commonwealth countries like Canada or Australia or whatever, it will have, a picture of the latest queen or king or whoever it is on the money. Well, you get Ramses II, who put his name on everything. I mean, you were over at the Ramesseum seeing the enormous statue of Ramses that had fallen. You saw at Luxor that the enormous granite structures in the pre-cataclysmic area at the beginning of Luxor, these structures have a sloppy cartouche that someone just put graffiti on there and put the name of Ramses in there. But anything you see that's significant at these temples that has to do with Tutmosis III, or Hatshepsut, that they connect him to being the master of the Ka. He was always the master of the white gold. He was the master of the stargates. He understood the ancient secrets, and his cartouche is Mem Kefun Ra. So let's circle back to that as well after your visit to Hatshepsut's mortuary, because that's fascinating.
Oh, man, still, you know what? There is nothing as drama-filled as when you walk up to her temple. I mean, she made sure, right, that was fully dramatic, right? Oh, yeah. It's widescreen. When they say 16 by 9, they're talking about her temple, right? That is right. That's crazy. Okay, let's back up for a second. We're ready to head to the commercial, and we'll do that. The Ramesseum is not talked about as much as it should be. It should be right there it should be mentioned in first person, like we talk about the Great Sphinx or the Great Pyramid, because that statue, when you step up to it, the foot is as big as my studio. The foot, right? It's like, and you're looking, the toe is as big as a car, right? And you're looking at this and you're like, okay, wait a minute here. One piece of granite, and you can't help but look up and think, what are we talking about here? I don't 70 feet, 80 feet, 90 feet. When you go up to the top, because the statue has been toppled over and broken, but they still have his torso, right? Well, they have his feet and stuff, but from here up, so they got the arms are off, but you see his head and his torso from here up, and it's lying on its back. You stand under his armpit and look up, right? That's how it's like. What?
I don't even think it was originally for him. I think they slapped his name on it, but there's inscriptions on there about stargates. I tend to think it was almost like a Stargate University rather than actual Stargates being in that spot.
Could be. And when you look at the proportions of this, so you see the torso, which is it's as big as a house, right? It's like that. And you're looking at it and sitting on its side, and it's one piece of granite, and you're just looking at this much of it, right? And you're looking, and how did it happen? How was that? It's so smoothly, it's so perfect, it's insanely, it's perfection. How did that happen? Well, Johnny, it happened because it was easy. There's no way that they, if that was done with modern tools and techniques, that would take 1,000 years. That way, it would never get done. But here you're looking at it, how did they move it? How did they tilt it up? Okay, all right, all honest questions. How did they carve it? How did they make that so magnificent and so perfect? It's incredible. That out of everything in Egypt is one of that's a real head scratcher. I think probably more so than the Great Pyramid.
If you look over at Chris Dunn's work, and I know I have to fix my microphone during the break that we go on to. I'm using my MacBook microphone right now. But when you look over at Luxor, for example, you can see a perfect arc radius. And Dunn has mapped that out before. It looks like there's been AutoCAD software or something that's been used. And there's a number of ways that they did this. As I described to you earlier, there would have been a crystalline-like device using harmonics to cut into it. However, one thing that Timothy Hogan has brilliantly pointed out, when you look at the alchemical and chemical knowledge that these people had, especially when we go back to the lectures he's done brilliant lectures at the Getty Museum, and talked about how they had a way of creating the hieroglyphics and putting these structures into stone. And we could talk about that when we come back from the break, but there's all kinds of technology and knowledge they had that I think is absolutely amazing that we've lost touch with today.
Yeah, let's take our break right here. Johnny, you fix your microphone. Our guest tonight, Jonny Enoch, and I'll be right back. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. Join us November 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2023, live at the Luxor Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip, as Disclosure Fest Foundation and Fade to Black Radio presents Stairway to the Stars, a Human Origins Science and Technology Expo, with live talks, lectures, and workshops by world-acclaimed researchers and authors featuring topics like human origins, ancient technologies, indigenous teachings, workshops, a mass meditation, yoga and sound healing, music, and so much more. This is Jimmy Church, by the way, and I'll be your host all weekend long. Don't miss our intimate sky watch and meteor shower over the infamous Area 51 airspace in Rachel, Nevada, with special surprise celebrity hosts guiding us through the night. This event will sell out. For more information and tickets, please visit disclosurefest.org. Hi, everybody. Jimmy Church here. Very special announcement, and that is we are shipping Fade to Black t-shirts again. It's been almost 2 years. We did a full upgrade to the website, so you can head over to jimmychurchradio.com. It's all simple to do, and it's right there. Remember, we broadcast 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday. We bring you the best, the brightest, the most knowledgeable and amazing guests, the best conversations. We do that 4 nights a week. We also do 4 days a week. We broadcast the news, and we do that live too as well. It's not a one-man show. I do it with website support. I do it with producers. I do it with writers and artists. All contribute to the show. The best way to help support what we do here is with a Fade to Black t-shirt. And you can get your Fade to Black t-shirt one of two ways. First, go to jimmychurchradio.com, order a shirt. It's really that simple. You're going to get a tracking number, it's going to get shipped, and it's going to get autographed. The second way to get a shirt is with a Game Changer membership. Now, the Game Changer membership not only includes a free t-shirt, but you get a private email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads. You have full access to the website, and everything includes free shipping, and everything is autographed. So help support the show. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. The links are below. You can just go to jimmychurchradio.com, and it's right on the website. So there you go. I'm Jimmy Church, Fade to Black. I'm so excited that I just have one thing to say. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Robert Clotworthy, the narrator of your favorite television show, Ancient Aliens. And I want to remind everyone that November 10th, 11th, and 12th at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, Disclosure Fest is happening. Yes, Stairway to the Stars. And guess what? I'm going to be part of an Ancient Aliens panel. I will be sharing the stage with the biggest stars of Ancient Aliens, Nick Pope, David Childress, Jason Martell, William Henry, all hosted by Jimmy Church. Is it possible that this will be the most amazing convention ever? Could it be that if you don't get your tickets, you'll regret it? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes. See you in Vegas.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Jonny Enoch. And we're talking about Egypt and time tonight. And right before the break, we were talking about the Ramesseum and the size of the statue. And I'm sitting here and I'm trying to describe to everybody what the size of the statue. We've seen giant obelisk and you know the Assyrian and yes, everything is big and over. Nothing really compares to the Ramesseum. And so Jonny, I grabbed one image off of my phone really quick, and just to give everybody a little bit of a little taste of what I am trying to describe here, because it's impossible to put into words. So I've got a lot of images. I just grabbed one, but this will help put it into perspective. That's his head, that's his torso, and that's his waist. What I don't have on the other side are his feet. I would be, you can see my mouse here, I would be about this tall right here on this wall. I've got another shot of me standing right here underneath his shoulder, right? And you have to picture this. This is probably from here to here. This is 20 or 30 feet. I don't know how many. This is one piece of granite that included his legs and his feet and his arms, and he was standing upright right on the other side of this. It was toppled over backwards. That's how big this. You can't put this into words. The statue in the background right here, that's like his leg. This thing would have been, I don't know, 80 feet, 8 stories tall. You know, when you look at his feet and you picture if it's all in proportion, and you look at this section of it, it's the size of probably an 8-story building. And Muhammad Ibrahim said one thing to me, right? He stopped me in my tracks. You know, this is just his words, not mine. He said, Jimmy, you're putting everything into years. No, I think it took minutes. They had a way of doing this. I don't know what it was, but they had a way of doing this in minutes. Does that kind of statement surprise you, or are you on board with it?
I think they possessed types of technologies that we don't even understand today. Working in hard stone, moving things, levitating them, navigating through time and space in ways that we don't even begin to understand. It's completely possible that they used some kind of a mold that was able to do it like an AutoCAD. But as we were talking about just before we left for the commercial break, when you talked to Timothy Hogan last, did he tell you about how they would have smoothed out the granite? A little bit, yes. Yeah, go ahead. So he believes they use hydrofluoric acid, and how they were doing this is that they would extract it from the thorny plant or the tamarisk. And this is very important because we see that it's on the side of these buildings, and it's very important in this mythology for the Egyptians, as well as the connection to these energies as well, because this hydrofluoric acid, it can also be used to extract various substances. It can be used in alchemy. That's how we would also be extracting the monoatomic white gold in some ways, but also it can be used for in cases making DMT, dimethyltryptamine, one of the things that you could use to extract things. But essentially it would eat through granite. And how you would do this is that the one thing that would stop it is you would use either gold or wax. So you'd make a stencil or an outline that would stop it in a certain area and then wash it away after. And this is how they would perfectly smooth out things. And as Timothy has so eloquently pointed out, when you go to a lot of these sites, you'll head over to this place and you'll see that where they spilt it, you would see it in an area like even when you're walking up the stairs over at Edfu Temple there, Hathor's Temple, you'll see it looks like either it's wear and tear down the steps, or they spilt a lot of it, or they spilt it on the side of some granite sarcophagi or something, or over by, let's say, down at the Serapeum, you could see where there was a spillage on the side of the box.
Yeah, and what do you make of, and Timothy and I were talking about this the other day. I want to run this by you. You see evidence of arcs all over Egypt, and it's very tough to deny. Are you losing your microphone again?
Yeah, I'm having an issue tonight with the connection on this, so I'm going to have to use my internal one. So I hope you can hear me all right.
Okay, you have to sit closer then.
Okay.
Don't let's just move on. I think, you know, it's all running together now, but in the back of Edfu, that temple that's in the back that you can't enter, it's roped off, but you can see it.
You see an arc.
It's an arc. Dude, that's an arc. It's got the sticks, it's got the thing, it looks like an arc, it walks like it talks like an arc. It's an arc, and it's sitting on that stand. Yeah. And there's a place to put it in the back. And where you put it, that box in the back looks like very similar to the box that's on the top of Elephantine Island, where there's another arc.
Well, we very much believe that there was not only dozens of these arcs and spread around in the temples, but thousands of them. And there's lots of legends of them. First of all, the ark was never a Hebrew story. It was called the Ark of the Contract. And these arks, when you look at their description of how they were built, how they were made, what their function was, we very much believe it was used to house the monoatomic gold, or the mana, the shamana, just like vimana. And when you look at where you find them and where they're being depicted, you're seeing, just as Timothy said on your Gaia show, when he was talking about how they would be used to levitate things, you could see that they almost had these devices hooked up to them that they were generating this energy where they could use those rods near them to manipulate fields of energy or power things, or you would put it up, let's say, in the Great Pyramid inside that box there. It would house it, and then it would act like a capacitor for the energy. So it's rather interesting to see how they would be used. If you think about it, if you take pure photonic energy with no mass and you put it inside of a box, you got an incredible weapon that's very powerful. There's been stories that in these ancient battles we find with the Hungarians and the Russians, and you see Attila the Hun or Genghis Khan and all them, that these Tartarians in these ancient battles, that they would have alleged to have had some sort of arc device, some people believe. And I just think they were everywhere. And I know in your most recent conversations you've had, let's say, with Scott Walter and Timothy, where they've talked about the fact that these arcs were brought over here to America, North America, and hidden all over the place. That's a very interesting conversation, too, that the founding fathers would have held on to these great secrets.
Let's talk about the Great Pyramid for a second.
Yes.
Yes, I've heard, just like anybody else, different researchers and different ideas about the box in the King's Chamber. All right. But let me say this. This is my eyeballs. Okay. This is my take. And I've listened to Jason Martell. I've listened to Robert Schoch. I've listened to John Anthony West and Graham Hancock, Timothy, everybody has got a different take, but it's not the take of it's a sarcophagus. Okay, so I think we can safely take that off of the table. My eyeballs, when you look inside of it, it's too narrow. It's long enough for something, right? I guess it could be long enough for something, but it's too friggin' narrow. And if you are putting a sarcophagus in there, which is the outside of the inner sarcophagus, which then has the other wooden sarcophagus and then has the mummy in it, right? The Russian dolls. That pharaoh, Khufu, would have been this wide. Yeah. And you can't convince me that a sarcophagus, because when you flip around and you look at the Serapeum, or you look at the Middle Kingdom, right? And look at the size of the sarcophagus that were there. Go to the Valley of the Kings. Go down to the bottom of KV 14, right? Where they have the two sarcophagus that are broken apart, down at the bottom.
Yeah, that's a beautiful tomb. That's one of my favorites. I like KV6.
It's a beautiful tomb. Look at the size of those sarcophagus, though. They're the size of a Greyhound bus, right? So you back up to Khafre, go to Khufu, and you look at that bus. It's narrow, right? It's long. Okay, it's probably 6.5, 7 feet, in length, but it's like this wide. So to put a sarcophagus in, and then another one, and another one, the friggin' mummy would have been a row of toothpicks.
Well, with that, Jimmy, we got to remember, people have said, okay, the pyramid was built as a tomb. I think that's an illogical. It's a logical fallacy. It's untenable. Was the pyramid a water pump at some point? Of course it was. Was it a power plant, as Chris Dunn has suggested in his Giza power plant hypotheses? Of course it was. Was it used for initiations by the Knights Templar who did their baptisms down in the grotto, and they moved up from water to fire and air up in the Queen's chamber, then in the King's chamber? All kinds of amazing things, and very much so, because of its alignment with Orion. We see it as a Stargate or portal-like network that could have been used to align initiates in it. I mean, people have been lying in that box for ages. Not only Napoleon, who visited there in 1799. When we move up into his initiation, he came out white as a ghost the next day because he had this incredible.
He never talked about it.
Not until the end of his life. Did you know that?
Life. That's right. So I asked Robert Schoch on the show. I asked him twice, and then also privately. Okay.
Yeah, his answers are different when you ask him privately what he thinks about the age of the Sphinx.
Well, I won't disclose that, but hold on. So Robert, this is on the show. You spent the night in the king's chamber. I did. You slept in the sarcophagus. I did. What happened? Not going to tell you. Right? Now, okay. One other thing that I want to say is, again, I don't want to contaminate anybody else's experiences. Go to the Great Pyramid, go to Egypt, enjoy it, check it out. It's mind blowing. It's life changing. But this time around, so I entered the king's chamber, and I'm by myself. And here's the thing. It looks, except for the box that's been touched too much, it's a little worn out. But the room itself is brand new. It is like, it's perfect. You know, you just look and you think to yourself, this is, okay, it's 5,000 years old, allegedly. I think it's much older than that. But let's just go with that. Let's just say 5,000 years old. This room is perfect. It is perfect. It's perfect. It's like brand new. It's unreal, the thing. So I went up. This is what I did. Now, spiritually, I've never been moved there, and I wasn't on this trippy. Nothing has changed for me. I other people do their thing, and they go in there and they ohm and pray and do their things. But I haven't had that experience there. But I did do this time, Johnny. Is I went in. And you know, you've experienced this. You've had a police officer tell you to put your hands on the wall, right? They're going to pat you down, right?
My experience there.
Assume the position. And so that's what I did. I put my hands on the wall and I leaned into it and I put my weight on my hands and just put my hands on the wall and closed my eyes. And I got to tell you, there is an energy there. And it's from a variety of different things. I don't know. It's a lot of weight. Granite carries energy. It's silica. It's crystalline. There's weight. There's a kinetic force. There's 5 million tons of weight above you pushing down on the king's chamber. So yeah, that definitely has something to do with it. But I felt it. I felt it go right up my arms. Right down my ass and to my feet, and it's a real thing. It's a real thing. It's powerful.
I don't even know where I would begin describing an experience where I was pushing my hands up against the wall. And, but I will say this: there's a very, very interesting book that people should get. That's very much like the experience you had and Robert Schoch had, as well as what Napoleon had. It's called In Search of Secret Egypt by Paul Brunton. And it was published in the 1930s. He heard this experience, and I believe you and I have discussed this before, but he decided he wanted to find out what Napoleon experienced when he went to Egypt. So he made the arrangements to go up into the...
Was that you? Did you hear that?
What's that?
You didn't hear that? Dude,
no,
it sounded like a World War II B-25.
Could be some kind of divine intervention. But
that was free. That was loud.
He goes up into the king's chamber. He makes the arrangements. And when he does this, he goes and gets these candles and he lights the candles. And as he's there, he starts to fall asleep. And this is when you could do this more easily. I mean, good luck doing this today. But as he was laying down there, he starts to get scared. These shadowy figures start to appear in the distance, and they start to approach him. And he sees that they are these priests, and they pull him out of the body. He's in the astral body, and they say, "We want to show you something." So they take him under the Great Pyramid into this underground chamber, and they show him a hall of records of ancient Egypt and where things started to take off, even back to the 4th dynasty and all these sort of areas where things started to really take off. So it's a mystical place. People do have experiences in there. There's tremendous energy. And could it have been used later on as a tomb? Sure. You know, a guy could have come along easily and said, hey, we found this thing. Let's throw this king in there. But it's too magnificent, too amazing. It's a great edifice, a sermon in the stone, and it's overwhelming. It overwhelms the puny senses when you visit it. You just have to go up in there and experience it for yourself.
When you the magnificence of it all starts to hit you, if you get the opportunity to be alone with the Great Pyramid, and Muhammad Ibrahim is you need somebody with connections, and certainly he's one of them. And so if you get the opportunity to do that, do it. When you're there during the day, and I've done that, there's tourists and there's things, and trinkets and things, camels and all of that you have to deal with at the different sites, but on the Giza Plateau. But when you're there alone at night and it's just the wind and it's a different vibe altogether.
It is,
and
yes.
It's a totally different vibe. And when you walk up those steps and you zigzag around and walk in, it's the silence combined with absolute power. But when you do the zigzag, you go around, you go up the tunnel, and when you enter the Grand Gallery and you look into it, it's, for me, it's mechanical.
Oh, yeah.
There isn't anything. When you go into Dendera, you cry like a child, right? You do. You're overwhelmed with the spirituality of it, and there's a different thing going on. That it's not there for me at the Great Pyramid at all. The Great Sphinx, dude, spiritual, powerful, crazy. It's so much fun. Great Pyramid is the exact opposite of that. And
different energy.
Yeah. And you know what else? I do have to say this. People talk about the lack of hieroglyphs. Okay. Yes. I mean, that's apparent. That's very visible. But all of the other temples, and you can say this about Dozier, the Step Pyramid. There's a certain amount of artistic. I mean, when you look at the Step Pyramid, really, and you go through it, and dude, that is like Picasso. That is like Michelangelo. That is a beautiful piece of majestic artwork, right? It's beautiful.
Under the Step Pyramid of Dozier, yeah.
Yeah. But the Great Pyramid, there's zero artistic value. Zero. There's nothing artistic about it.
No.
There's nothing aesthetically pleasing about it.
Well, you have all kinds of interesting types of stone and things the Egyptians were working in, whether it was alabaster or certain materials that acted like a solar cell, especially when you go under the Step Pyramid of Dozier. One great secret is this is something that John Anthony West tapped into, is that there's many enormous tunnels that go underneath that thing, and they go for a very, very long ways all across Egypt, which is incredible.
There's 5 kilometers, 5 kilometers of tunnels just under the Step Pyramid.
Oh, there's more than that. That's just
well, there's more than that. Okay, all right. Let's just go with the dogma. Okay, let's just go. But 5 kilometers of tunnels. That's insane.
It's absolutely insane. With the Great Pyramid, though, it's very interesting that a lot of people want to seek out this experience. To get that Great Pyramid to yourself, it costs about $3,000. You have to pay that to get it for yourself these days. It used to be $2,000. That's why it's good to go with a group. Each one of these places that you guys were hitting as a group for a private permission, from the Osirion to the Sphinx enclosure to the Great Pyramid, or wherever it is, the Osiris shaft, all of that is a permission that, as you know, you have to have guards, you have to have the Antiquities has to look at your the reason for being there. So it's rather fascinating how that works. Also, when we look over at the Great Pyramid, you're absolutely right. It would be like walking past a power plant in the days of old. I think that you may even have gotten electrocuted if you touched the side of it. We were told in the ancient descriptions of it that the limestone portions of it, and we only see parts of the casing stones today, that it was just smooth. There was no entrance whatsoever to get into there. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the story of the Khalifa al-Mahmud. Have you?
I have.
Okay, yeah. So there's, as you know, the story about the robbers' entrance on the outside that you see that we go through. We get a story that's fascinating connected to that comes from the Arabian Nights or 1001 Nights, that the Khalifa or the Caliph, he was looking for the treasures that he was told were buried underneath the Great Pyramid by these great giants who we call the El Shaddai, or the Great Ones. And so they had supposedly hidden them there, these giants that we're told built the pyramid. And so he sends his servants, who were great and loyal, faithful servants of him and good Muslims. And so they went in there, were told that they knew where to go. But I think they made the hole from the inside out. And it was probably known at, Greek times during the time of Alexander the Great or an area like that. So it's so fascinating that what we see today, a lot of those stones have been taken out and used to build all the mosques and churches and buildings in the nearby area.
Yeah, and okay, so this is what Johnny's referring to. I'm going to pull this up. I just grabbed these real quick, everybody. They're not in any particular order, but these were taken just last week. Okay, it's last week.
Cool.
It's hard for me to believe that today is the 25th, and on the 14th, that's when these pictures were taken. So 9 days ago. Okay, so this is fresh stuff. So this is what it's like to be alone in the Great Pyramid. So I'm halfway up. This is this is the tunnel. Down at the bottom is where you go out and hit the Giza Plateau. Let me get my mouse here. This is the entrance to the Grand Gallery. So check out, this is what I'm referring to. When you look at the Grand Gallery and you walk in and you look up, here you have this magnificent, check out this next shot. Look at this, right? Now, at the very top, right here, that's the entrance into the King's Chamber. There's a little hole right here. And that's how far up you have to go. But you're building something this big, this magnificent, and you don't make it beautiful, right? You would adorn this with everything to make it beautiful. It's not, because it did something else, and that's it. That's it. It's not. This isn't Dendera. This isn't any other temple that you would go to. The age of Abydos and when you go to different parts of Saqqara that have been dated back to, right, allegedly 5,000 years ago. They're artistic, and some of the best art that the Egyptians ever created are right there. This is built during the same time period, and there's nothing there. It is a crazy feeling. This is another shot here I took too as well. So anyway, that's I can't express this enough. It's magnificent. It's crazy to stand there and to look at it, but it is void of anything that's pleasing to the eye.
Yeah, it's most certainly has a utilitarian function to it, but it also has a very powerful feeling to it. Recently, my girlfriend Kim, she was going down into the subterranean chamber, and that's almost overwhelming. She was going down by herself. Well, we had some of the other group members up in another area that asked to see a certain part, and so when you go in there, it's an overwhelming feeling that even she felt. She was overwhelmed with the energy that's there. And even when you go down there, you get your hotel keys get demagnetized, and you go back to your hotel and you go to use them, and they just don't work.
Yeah, I've heard that. Somebody just asked, what does it smell like? You know what? It doesn't smell like anything.
It smells. King's chamber smells like sweat to me.
Yeah, the Kings. We're talking about the Grand Gallery.
Oh
the
yeah,
King, the King's chamber smells like 10,000-year-old oxygen, whatever that smells.
You know what the worst smelling pyramids are? Is if you go into the pyramids over by Saqqara, when it's by the Red Pyramid and the Bent Pyramid, those smell like ammonia from all the bats that've been pissing.
Yeah. It's pretty powerful there for sure.
Overwhelming.
But anyway, so back to the Great Pyramid. When you walk through it, you start to, now you're going to have your spiritual people that are going to go there and they have their expectations. They're going to go down the spiritual path. Fine. Great. All right. After everybody got into the King's chamber and I said my piece and we did our little thing and stuff. I said, okay, everybody, you stay here. I'm going to go get lost and I want to be alone. Okay. So I split. Now I am now by myself, dude. I'm doing it all, right? Up and down Queen's chamber and doing my thing. And you cannot help but just notice the purpose. You don't know what the purpose is, but it was done with intention, and the idea behind, and I'm not repeating myself. The idea of this being a tomb is incorrect. It's not truth. I think that it's been repeated and told so many times, Johnny, that they can't back up now. They have to, you know what I mean? They have to stay right there. They can't back up no matter what is revealed, no matter what is made known. They're going to stay right there. If you remember the Osiris shaft, the tunnels that are underneath the Great Pyramid that Colin Andrews found, that Zahi Hawass now insists that he found, but Colin Andrews found. And what is underneath the Great Sphinx, and that's John Anthony West and Robert Schoch, and the ground penetrating radar and everything else that they did there to find the subterranean stuff underneath the Great Sphinx. None of this stuff was supposed to be there.
You know about underneath the Sphinx. What's really interesting is that a friend of mine over there, Yusuf Ayawan and the Ayawan family, his father was the great Abdel Hakim Ayawan, who we owe a great deal of favor to, because that's
the absolutely best. He was the OG. He's the OG of the game. He was going and meditating at all these spots, and he's like a Sufi, a mystic. He was smoking and we'll just say shisha with the likes of the Grateful Dead. He took Henry Kissinger around. He went around these places. Again, I'm talking about Abdel Hakim Ayawan, and he paved the way for everyone to do this kind of mystical work and exploration. But it's interesting because Yusuf, who's his son, would tell me that he would look out his window there over in Giza and he would see interesting things happen at night. And I'd say, what do you mean interesting things? He said, right over by the paw of the Sphinx, where those floorboards are, for all those years, they would lift that all up. And they would be using expensive excavator equipment and all that, going underneath it and exploring it. And then those floorboards would go back down, right? When you see the stele in the front and everything. Now, it is my opinion that what was underneath that Sphinx, aside from the entrances to the tunnel systems and everything that's there, and there's multiple entrances, I believe that there was a very important hall of records that's since been removed. I think this is very similar to what is probably found under the various Sphinxes of the world, and I do believe there is more than one. And I would say that, as we've discussed before, I believe up in the Carpathian Mountains, when we go near just outside of Hungary and you go into Romania, there's up in Buceci, or we call it Buceci if you're over there, there's what they call the Carpathian Sphinx, and all the world leaders and folks of a great importance have visited up there.
for some very interesting meetings to see that very important underground museum there. And this has been documented in the books called Transylvanian Sunrise by Radu Sinamar, which is just a pseudonym that he used, as well as Peter Moon. And what's interesting is that it's also been hypothesized that there's something known as the Balochistan Sphinx in Pakistan. There's a Sphinx-like structure over in Alaska, which we talked about on the Alaska Triangle, as well as Linda Moulton Howell's discussed the discoveries that we're looking at over there with this underground pyramid, which I'm sure you've learned about. So these sphinxes, Jimmy, I believe perhaps they served as halls of records all over the world. And I'm sure you're aware that the great Edgar Cayce said that the records of Atlantis will be found under the paw of the Sphinx. And guess who had an early on interest and help from the Edgar Cayce Society was actually our friend there, Zahi Was. So it's very interesting that there's a cross-pollination tie-in to how amazing that is. And there you were next to that amazing structure. How cool is that?
Yeah. And Hakeem, I'm really glad that his son, who's been on the show a few times now, and I love him to death, and his wife, is that these are oral traditions that have been passed down from one priest to another for thousands of years. And Hakeem was, he's not the last, but he was at the time, right? He was the recipient of thousands of years of oral traditions that have been handed down. And to hear him speak about not only a different mindset and a different view of what was actually going on in Egypt, he ruffled a lot of feathers. And Yusuf grew up playing at that's it. That was his life. His dad is doing his thing. He's listening to his dad. His dad is teaching him. But Yusuf is running around, climbing, looking, reading hieroglyphs and understanding everything. And he's carried on the traditions of his father. And that's why I think he's an important person. I think he's great. He's funny. He's kind. He's friggin' smart. And he's carrying everything around that his father presented to the world for years. I miss Hakeem. I miss Hakeem so much.
He's let's give credit to Hakeem. I remember him today for sure. But Yusuf's a lot of fun. When hanging out with him in Egypt, he's riding on the back of a donkey, racing everyone else, and he's got a great sense of humor. I like it. I'll be out there, let's say, when we were in Tanis with him, and he's like exploring everything, crawling over rocks and jumping off of things, and you don't know where he's disappeared to. So he's a fun guy. I love all that indigenous knowledge that we get there, which is very important that we preserve this knowledge, the oral tradition, but as well as what came back from the Coptics. I think that the Coptic Christians that we see today, they embody traditions that are very similar to what the ancient Egyptians had, and it's very close in certain ways that they brought their religion together as well. So it's all very important, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we see such a religious aspect in Egypt today, that we see there's a lot of mosques, that there's a prayer time, that there is this sacredness that is taken very seriously there. It's not a secular place whatsoever. And so I think that's great when you have that around places of power.
I remember, and I know that you've done this. So we're at Doja. We come out of the Serapeum.
Yes.
And walking down with Muhammad, and we've got the director of the plateau there for Dozier in Saqqara. Yeah. And we're walking down, and I said, "Where are you taking me?" And he goes, "Well, I'm going to take you to the tomb of the priest Tai," which is, dude, right?
Very cool.
Oh man. And it's a bit of a walk, right? It's probably half mile, across the desert. And we're walking, and this is what Muhammad says to me. And we're with the director of Saqqara and security and other people, right? That work there. And we're coming down the hill, and Muhammad said, "This is why this place is so special." I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "I lived right over there.
Yes.
I went to school right over there. This is where I grew up. This was my playground. Me and this guy, and he's pointing at the director, we went to school together. This is where we rode our bikes. This is where we played. This is where we discovered things like this tomb that I'm about to take you to. When we were kids, it was just here. And you just, wow, right? And so yeah. And you have to appreciate that side of it, right? I can't imagine what it was like to grow up there. Anyway, so we walk around and we go down into the tomb of the priest Tai, and I wasn't prepared for that. And the reason why, and that's including coming out of the Serapeum, right, which is like the most majestic thing on planet Earth, right? It's crazy. Yes. But you go, this is in the middle of nowhere. It's in the middle of nowhere. Dude, sand dunes, and you come around the corner, and you're going down the steps, and it's like they dug it up yesterday because it's protected by the sand. You know what I mean? And you walk around and you look down, and it just continues down underground, deep down the steps, and to go into that subterranean chamber. And to see what was constructed, I don't know how many thousands of years ago, but this is deep underneath the desert. One other point I want to make, we didn't discuss this, going back to the Assyrian, which includes the Serapeum in the same conversation, and like the tomb of Tai, is that above the Assyrian, below the temple of Seti the First, Abydos, you can see the layers of sediment above it. I would love to take. I had Randall Carlson on the show the other night, Johnny.
Yes,
and I asked him about that. He said he stood right there at the Assyrian. He looks across and you could see how deep it is, and the layers of sediment above it, and it's like 100 years, 100 years, 100 years, 100 years, 100 years, 100. You know what I mean? And it just adds up to, it's got to be thousands of years older than the Temple of Seti the First. They only call it, a Seti the First building project because it's next to Abydos, but I don't think the two are connected.
No, I don't think. I don't think that they really connect the importance of it. It's absolutely integral that people look at these connections, because these places were not built by accident where they put.
But they weren't built at the same time. You know what I mean? We're talking thousands of years apart.
Yes, I totally agree. They were built at different time periods, and that's what people need to realize when they come to Egypt. The Osirian, pre-cataclysmic. You go above that, you start seeing other structures. You go to the time of Ptolemy. You go to various groups. Let's say Dendera's temple. We have it's a Greek influence thing. We have Greco-Roman. We have all kinds of periods, right, that go back and forth.
Well, and sometimes you'll see all three in the same column. that were thousands of years apart. Same temple, different influences, right? The base of a column is Egyptian, the top of it is Greek, and the middle is Roman, or the opposite, or you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And that's the most amazing part about the Egypt story. And to really look at this, we have to bring it back to, I would say, the 4th dynasty of when things started to shoot off for the dynastic people. Both the 4th to the 19th dynasty, they tapped into a lot of secrets, and then those secrets got taken out of there. And that's why Khufu, or Cheops, that period is so important, because he was literally seeking out the story of how the pyramids were built. He was trying to find what we call the pyramid text. So we already know at that time he was looking for that. Moreover, people say the pyramids didn't exist, before that. Well, it's very simple to get the evidence for that. If anybody has a thinking brain with 500 brain cells moving in the same direction, if you go over to the Nubian Museum, we have ostrich eggs that depict in pre-dynastic art these triangles, which are clearly the pyramids, and some people say mountains. Even in the Cairo Museum, I'm sure Mohammed showed you this When you're in the center upstairs area to the left is pre-dynastic art, and you'll see these very strange extraterrestrial-like beings that are very tall walking along, and you'll see the pre-dynastic art of more triangles that are clearly pyramids. So we have a significant amount of energy that shows that these different periods are like the layers of an onion that we were peeling back. But why the fourth dynasty again is so important is I believe that's when they stumbled upon the monoatomic gold, and they discovered a lot of ancient technologies. And we see that they shot up like this.
Yeah. And probably, and it's under lock and key, it's right there in front of everybody, but you can't see it, is Khufu's stela, right? And it's right there on the Giza Plateau, but it's locked up in an iron box. Now, this friggin' thing is big. That box, I don't know, what do you think? 20 feet tall, 15 feet wide. It's probably 6 feet thick. And it's a safe. It's like a giant gun safe with a huge padlock on the front of it, right? And inside of that is a stela, a granite stela, where Khufu carved it. Well, he didn't. He had somebody carve it for him. And he tells the story of what? Of him coming to the Giza Plateau to do repair and restoration work on the Great Pyramid.
Well, that's what, when you go with the red pyramid, the bed pyramid, we say Senefru. We say that built it. His name just means restorer. That's all it means. So these guys, they found Egypt. In fact, if you go back into the writings of Diodorus in his Bibliotheca Historica in 50 BCE, he says the Egyptians were strangers from a faraway land that came from the far west, or you could say like the Atlantic or an area after the cataclysms, and they found Egypt. They found it the way it was, and we got to think of the Sahara not as some desert where we keep finding things over and over again underneath it, lost ancient technologies and everything, but you got to think of it, it was a lush, green, beautiful, amazing place. And again, I'm going to throw in another name because we're talking about the white gold. And why is that significant? Well, I believe at one point there was a reactor that was by the Dead Sea where they were extracting various materials. And I think that what is very interesting is when we go into the writings of Sir William Flinders Petrie, who you and I have discussed before. In 1904, he went on behalf of the British Royal Geography Society up into the Sinai, and they were looking for something known as the Moses Mountain, or Selabit al-Qadam, or Mount Horob, the Mountain of Secrets. They found inscribed upon the walls from the 4th all the way up to the 19th dynasty, the kings were going there for a secret ritual to consume this white material, which they found sealed and hermetically sealed containers. And these were the cakes that they were consuming that upgraded their intelligence, that allowed them to live longer, that gave them intuitive abilities that perhaps unlocked the pineal gland to move through these stargates and to access these sort of technologies. I believe, Jimmy, that sound was involved. I believe they used a form of harmonics or harmonic oscillation to activate this stuff and to use the granite that contained the energy. And I believe in conjunction with these technologies, they were able to do great things. And there's no coincidence that this is the Moses story where they built the Ark of the Covenant that was there, that we find all connected into this story. So, and that's why, for me, the fact that says from the 4th dynasty is where they found that, to me, is no doubt that they had all this crap that they were playing with the pre-dynastics, rubbing sticks together, making mud brick walls and all that. And then after the 4th dynasty, they started to figure out how to do things again, and their abilities and accomplishments shot through the roof.
And we can't forget that Frodo and Samwise ate the white elven cakes to survive their travel to Mordor.
That's cool.
I'm just saying, coincidence? I think not. Jonny Enoch, you are the very best, my friend. I'll see you in a couple of weeks in, I almost said Egypt, at Luxor in Las Vegas. We're going to break bread and knock down walls together once again, my friend.
We are. Can I pitch a couple things before we go?
You can pitch whatever you want. It's your show. I'm just here.
Thank you very much. I want to give a shout out to our friend Daniel Brinkley. He's been doing some great work recently with the veterans at lightstreamers.com. They're doing some stuff for the VA. and doing some great things to help people at their bedside that are dying in hospices, and also getting medication out to the veterans. So please support that. Also, I know you guys have a wonderful tour. Your tours are looking awesome these days, but we do have a great tour coming up. Horus has risen, working with Brian Forster and Patricia's group, and we're going to be doing that. You can find out about that at JohnnyEnoch.com. I can't wait to see you all at this conference. And Jimmy, maybe one of these days we're actually going to play blackjack together. Like, you always bug me that I didn't play with you that time.
Don't make me tell that story, Johnny.
Peace, everybody.
I'll see you later, brother. Thank you so much. I'll see you in Vegas.
Thank you so much, brother.
Jonny Enoch, JohnnyEnoch.com. Very simple. Go and visit it and stay in touch with Johnny. What a great show. Perfect show tonight. Absolutely loved every minute of it. I want to remind everybody that no Fade to Black tomorrow. No. I've got more TV production that I have to go out and get done. But I'll see everybody on Monday. All right. So until then, I want you to be safe. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jonocide. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be recopied, downloaded, or used anywhere in the known universe without the written permission from Fade to Black, the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Everybody have a great, safe, fun, amazing weekend. I'll see you right here on Monday. Until then, go Backley Tappy.